Hey everyone, Haley here from The Foiled Plan. Today I'm going to show you how to make a super cute newborn onesie with your Cricut. Let's get started. As always, we're going to need a few things for the project, so let's go over the supplies we're going to use today. First off, we're going to be using a cutting machine. I'm going to use the Cricut Joy today, but feel free to use whatever cutting machine you want. Just know that when we go into the screen recording aspect of this tutorial, everything will be done in Cricut Design Space. Other things that we're going to need include a heat source for this because it's so small and I'm not heat pressing anything else today. I'm just going to be using my mini Easy Press. You're going to need a cutting mat, a onesie, of course. So for today, I'm going to be using the Cricut Infusible Ink Blank, which is the baby bodysuit. Just because it is an infusible ink blank doesn't mean that you can't use it for other things. So we're going to be putting vinyl on it today. I'm also going to be using my Cricut Easy Press mat to protect my surface from the heat that I'm going to be using. Feel free to use a towel or just something to protect your surface. I'm going to use a weeding tool. We're going to need some HTV. This is heat transfer vinyl from Caesar. It is their Easy Weed line and it's just in the color black. We're doing a black design on a white onesie. If you have a favorite iron-on or HTV, feel free to use that. You just may have to adjust your settings when it comes time to selecting your material if it's different than what I'm working with. You're also going to need something to measure so that you are placing your design in the right spot on your onesie, a pair of scissors or a paper trimmer, something that you can cut this vinyl with. And last but not least, you're going to need something to access your cutting machine software. So because we're using a Cricut, we're going to need to access Cricut Design Space. And today I am using my iPad Pro. This is the 5th generation with the M1 chip. It's the 12.9 inch screen. So at the time of this video, it's the newest iPad. Okay, so we are in Cricut Design Space and we're going to be using a font that I've already uploaded. It's not one that comes standard in Design Space. I do have a video, I'll link it somewhere along here, and that goes over how to upload fonts specifically for iPads in Cricut Design Space. So check that out if you don't know how, but we're gonna hit the text button and I've already typed it in previously, so it's the first option that comes up. But if it hasn't, make sure you're on System and then you can type in the font name or just do a scroll through. I'm gonna select that font and I'm gonna change that to say Little Bun. And I'm gonna tap it again and hit the edit button. And I'm gonna change my style to bold. I want it to be a little bit thicker. Now this font is supposed to be sort of like a knockoff of the Ray Dunn font. However, it is for personal use only, which means if you're making anything with it, you cannot sell it. So this onesie today is just going to a friend of mine. It's not being sold or anything like that. It's just for a gift. So that's something to keep in mind when you are adding fonts. Anyways, now I want to use an uploaded image. So a design that I've created from Procreate. I do have a video on that as well, and I'll pop that somewhere along here if you don't know how to do that. But I already have the PNG saved in my uploaded images. So I'm going to hit upload and I'm going to open my uploaded images and it's the first one there. So I'm going to select that and hit the insert. Now this is huge, so I'm going to have to resize it. And then it should snap. As soon as you see that yellow line, that means it's snapping. And in this case, it's snapping to the center of the font. And that looks good to me. Now I'm going to select around the entire design. I've already measured my onesie and decided that 4 inches as my width will be perfect. I did notice with this font, there are some little wonky areas in the N and the I. So what I'm going to do is select and hit the actions and the weld. So now those little things have disappeared. That looks good to me. Sometimes with custom fonts, you have to look a little bit before you actually go ahead and make it, because you might notice little things that are out of place or just look a little bit strange that you had to fix. Okay, so we've got that centered. And I'm gonna make this a little smaller. Basically, I want the lines of the buns to almost match the thickness of the font, just so it doesn't look like it's out of place. I want it to look like a cohesive design. Okay, let's just double check because we've made some changes. Width is 4, height, okay. Now what I'm going to do is draw a square around everything and release so it selects everything. I'm gonna go to the actions and hit the attach button. So now that's gonna stay as one solid design, and we'll see if it's an appropriate size to be able to cut on the Cricut Joy with a mat, because if it's not, then we're gonna have to detach and cut the buns and the font separately. So we hit make it, and it's giving us the option to choose the load type, which is great, which means we're gonna be able to do this on a mat. So I'm gonna select on a mat. We want to turn the mirror for iron-on setting on because we're using heat transfer vinyl. So now it looks backwards. This is a great way to know exactly the size HTV you're gonna need to cut because you'll see it the way that it would sit on the mat when you're cutting it. I want more than I need just in case it ends up cutting it a little bit off. So I'm just grabbing my paper trimmer. I have my standard grip mat for my Cricut Joy. Just peel off the protective sheet and we're gonna place the vinyl down. Now I'm going to hit next, open up my Cricut Joy, and I'm gonna use the everyday iron-on setting. This is flashing, so it's ready to load. It's gonna make sure that your mat is aligned. And now it's ready to cut. So on the iPad, I'm gonna press go. And while this is cutting, even though it won't take long, I'm going to turn on my mini easy press to the medium heat setting. Now we can unload the mat. And as always, we flip the mat over and peel the mat away from the vinyl. You want to do this more so with adhesive vinyl, but it's a good idea just to keep it as a common practice, and then you don't forget about it in those times when you really need to do it. It just keeps your vinyl from curling. Okay, so I have my design flipped, it's shiny side down, and I'm going to weed the negative space. So we've got the design weeded. So our heat press is heated up to the medium heat setting. I'm gonna grab my onesie, and Cricut recommends to prep the garment by heating it for about 5 seconds. So I'm just gonna run this along here, but first I'm gonna take a lint roller and I'm just going to give it a quick roll. Now I'm gonna place the design down. I try to stay like an inch from the top of the neckline, just because if you have it too low, you have to think about halfway. If they wear little pants or little shorts, they're probably gonna come up to about this far on the design. So you wouldn't really want anything lower than that. And you can take a measuring tape or a ruler just to make sure that it is about the same on both sides. And the nice thing about onesies is you can pick them up and kind of look at them from a little bit of a distance to make sure that it looks straight. And now I'm just gonna take a piece of parchment paper and lay it on top. And now I'm going to use my heat press and use constant movement with light pressure for 25 seconds. Now I'm gonna flip this over. And then we're gonna peel when it's cool to the touch. This sort of helps it cool down a little bit. And we're done. Well, my foiled friends, that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to make a onesie with your Cricut. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And if you want to hang out with me in between videos, I'll leave my social media links in the description box. Well, I hope you guys have a super awesome day, and that's all I'm gonna say. Bye!